the game Saturday in Ann Arbor, Ohio State against Michigan. Big Ten championship aspirations on the line, playoff aspirations on the line. A lot of Ohio State players who do not have experience in the game playing in their first game, and definitely a lot starting in their first game. Today on Buckeye Talk, Nathan Baird from cleveland.com, Doug Lesmerises, Stephen Means. We're talking about who are the most interesting Ohio State players in this year's matchup. Doug, who is your most interesting Buckeye?
So everyone's going to talk about the Michigan run game. They've run the ball really well. You know, when you talk about the run game, then is it about the Ohio State defense stopping the Michigan run game, or is it about Ohio State like being able to run the ball as effectively as Michigan if they need to? And I do think it's one of these things where, in a world where there's a lot of respect for the Michigan defensive line, especially their pass rushers, if Ohio State can't just chuck it around because they're getting pressured, then they're going to have to hand it off to TreVeyon Henderson. And this maybe is the thing that they've been careful with his carries. They have not had to lean on him for 20 carries a game in the last couple weeks, and maybe that's what's going to happen on Saturday. So to be a freshman in this game, it's a big deal. I think he's on alert, right? Ohio State has 4 games left if they're going to win a national championship, and it's like TreVeyon Henderson time. And if he needs to carry it 100 times against Michigan, Wisconsin, Cincinnati, and Georgia for them to win a national title, then he's going to carry it 100 times. It might start now. Like, they didn't really need him last week. It was okay. And so I'm curious if that's what this game would go like, because sometimes you face a great pass rusher, run at him. And I could see TreVeyon Henderson getting a load on Saturday, getting a big load of carries.
I don't need to tell the people who are watching this that freshmen have a habit of making an impact in this game for Ohio State. Chris Olave kind of kickstarted his career with a big impact. Ryan Day was talking today. Garrett Wilson doing kind of the same thing his first year, making an impact. We'll see if that can happen for TreVeyon Henderson or some other freshman for Ohio State. Stephen, who is your most interesting Buckeye in this game?
So we've seen Craig Young get kind of thrown out there in these wrinkles the last couple of weeks here, and then against Michigan State, he was just out there playing cover safety, because the game dictated that. We knew Michigan State had a Heisman-level running back, so you probably just need a third linebacker basically out there, a guy of that size who can also do some defensive back stuff. The end of the season just seems like it's Craig Young time, because Michigan's kind of the same way. They're going to run the ball, especially if Blake Corum is out there with Hassan Haskins, because now you've got that two-headed snake that they like to use in these situations. So this just seems like another one of those games where Craig Young plays 35 to 40 plus snaps, and he's just out there, and he's out there to make plays, because they use him as kind of a standing rusher, cover safety, bullet, linebacker, whatever you want to call it. But this just seems like the games last week, this week, and then obviously next week if they get to Wisconsin in the Big Ten championship game. These just seem like Craig Young's. He's going to play the most in this stretch of games because of the type of opponent they're playing.
And he comes on when it's like 2 tight ends on the field. Yep. So if there's not like an actual slot receiver that they have a cover safety over, he is like their third linebacker. And you look at the first snap from Michigan State last week when Haskell Garrett blew it up. Craig Young cleaned it up because they had him on a run blitz on the first snap. So it's like they can use him to sort of attack the run game and get in the backfield on some of this stuff. So I do think this could be a big game for him.
Yeah, two guys who don't really have experience in the game, and I'm picking one along the same lines. Duane Jones, I think, has obviously proven himself over the course of this season. I mean, he's one of the best tackles in the Big Ten, one of the best tackles in the country. A couple weeks ago against George Karlaftis, he and Nicholas Petit-Frere really neutralized him, kind of alternating. But they got some help from everybody else in that offense, but they both did a really good job, and they consistently grade out as among the best in the country. Aiden Hutchinson is the real deal for Michigan. David Ajabo also really strong, kind of playing off of him. So it's another big test for Jones, and this is really a first time in his environment, first time, although he may have gotten on the field, actually, now that I think about it, in 2019 at the end of that game being a freshman. I can't remember. He was definitely involved with that team and at least being on special teams and things. But, the first time being a starter on this offensive line against an opponent of this caliber with the stakes this high, it's been a great rise for him this season. A guy who went from being off of people's radars and somebody we were talking about as maybe a 2022 starter to now there's a real question, like, should he be back here next year or should he be in the NFL next year? I think it's an interesting question, and what he does on this stage against this opponent could maybe turn some more heads and give him further fuel to take that next step. But we'll see. Get the text, 614-350-3315, and listen to Buckeye Talk. We're keeping the episodes coming all week heading into the game Saturday in Ann Arbor.